Alrighty, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow citizens and students. It is an honor to stand before you today as we embark on a journey of open discourse and civic engagement. In the heart of Wichita Southeast High School, we have gathered for a town hall meeting, a symbol of our commitment to democracy and the free exchange of ideas to promote the interest of the next generation of voters. You all, the class of 2024. I am Stephen Kretz, government teacher at Wichita Southeast, and will serve as moderator and timekeeper for this afternoon. My goal is to be impartial, to guide us through the conversations, and maintain order as we hear from both candidates today. With a deep respect for the principles of democracy and a commitment to fostering constructive dialogue, I will attempt to ensure that all voices are heard, questions are asked, and answers are provided. As we convene here today, we are joined by current Mayor of Wichita, Mr. Bradon Whipple. And his opponent, Ms. Lily Wu, who will both be attempting to gain your votes for the upcoming election that'll take place on November 7th. The format of today's debate will be a town hall. 10 students have been selected to each ask one question. Candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question uninterrupted with a 2-minute time limit for each question. After 2 minutes, the moderator and myself will provide a 30-second warning to each candidate to allow them a chance to finish their final thoughts on each topic of discussion. Candidates will alter who speaks first after each question. We will begin with a 2-minute opening statement and will conclude with a 2-minute closing statement. Due to time constraints and the format of the debate, candidates, please hold any rebuttals during questioning. Counter-arguments and claims can all be provided in your closing statements. By random draw, Mr. Whipple will be starting with his opening statement first, followed by Ms. Wu. After these introductions are completed, Ms. Wu will be provided with the first question from our students. Again, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Audience, students, it is important to remain silent while candidates are speaking. After each candidate has completed their response, please hold all comments, shows of support, and applause until closing statements have been completed. We will begin with Mr. Whipple's opening statement, and on behalf of USD 259, Wichita Southeast High School, thank you and welcome to our wonderful building. Mr. Whipple.
All right, well, I just messed around my microphone, so it sounds like it's working, and that already has exceeded my expectations on how this is gonna go, because normally I mess up technology. But thank you all for being here. My name is Bradon Whipple, I'm the mayor of Wichita. I actually grew up in New Hampshire. Has anybody ever been to New Hampshire? Okay, thank you to the one person. Okay, a couple people. So you know, it's pretty far away. I came out here for an AmeriCorps mission about 20 years ago, and I actually worked with at-risk students at South High School. And during my time, that was supposed to be a 1-year commitment, during my time here, I actually just fell in love with the city of Wichita. This became a place where I could really achieve my goals without going too far into debt, or by taking advantage of opportunities that wasn't presented to me in my hometown of Dover, New Hampshire. And that includes being able to afford college. That includes being able to get a job outside of college, and being able to be the first in my family to own a house, because we had affordable housing here in Wichita. And all this stuff is unique to me, because back in New Hampshire, because of the lack of affordable housing and property taxes, my family, or my parents, who are the hardest working people I know, they'll never have the opportunity to own a house. And when I ran for office back in 2012 and became a state legislator, that was part of what motivated me, was to continue to make Kansas that place of opportunity, not just for the now or for my generation, but also for that next generation. When I ran for mayor back in 2019, we were really somewhat in a crisis. Our city was facing the worst public health, employment or economic, and also budget crisis we've seen in over a lifetime. And because of that experience that I had in the legislature, because of the community and the organizations that we work beside, because of the nonprofits and those who work in economic development, we were able to not only turn the page on the COVID economy and also the deficits and the budget issues that we had, but actually now Wichita is leading the state in economic growth and opportunity. We've had continuous budget surpluses. We have more investment going into things like parks. We have more investment going into the type of services that people are expect out of us, like police officers, like firefighters, and also we're paving more roads than we ever have. So as we move forward, my goal in the next term is to continue this progress, to make sure that we don't pump the brakes on our success. I want to make sure that we also talk about some of the issues that, frankly, we've only talked about in the past, but we haven't actually made positive movement on, and that includes public transportation. That includes making sure that we have even more opportunities by investing in community centers, investing in community organizations that are already doing this incredible work. And also, I think we can solve homelessness. There's only a few cities our size that have really taken that challenge on and been successful with it, and I want Wichita to be on that list. So we got plans to tackle homelessness and get us down to functional zero, which is going to help other folks as well, not just those who are living unhoused, but also their family members. And I think that there's a great opportunity to partner with schools like this when it comes to programming as we move forward. Some of the things that we were able to do is make sure that we are focused on job training. The city invested over $1 million in our Ready Centers, which allows students really the opportunities, and when I say students, I'm talking about y'all, right? Really the opportunities that we didn't have back when I was a kid. Now you can actually build an airplane as part of your education here. Now you can actually get credentials to work in the healthcare sector. Now you can actually get your hands wet or your feet wet when it comes to learning about advanced manufacturing. And I think that if Wichita is going to grow and
30
create
seconds,
these
Mr.
type of
Whipple.
opportunities for people like you who are gonna have choices when you get older, do you want to stay in Wichita? Do you want to go somewhere else? We got to keep those investments and make sure that we keep moving forward so we can provide you the type of Wichita that is worthy of you to inherit. Thank you.
Well, how are you all, Southeast High School Buffaloes? Thank you so very much for having me today. I love giving presentations across our community, sharing my story and my vision for Wichita. So I always start off by asking 3 questions. First question, please raise your hand if you were born in Wichita, Kansas. Second question, I'd like to know who watches local television news? Raise your hand. And third question, are you satisfied with local government?
That one guy. I see you.
Those 3 questions guide not just my story, but the reason why I'm running to become the next mayor of Wichita. My name is Lily Wu, and I'm a proud product of Wichita Public Schools. But my Wichita story did not begin here. You saw that my hand was not raised during the first question. I was born and raised in Antigua, Guatemala. My brother Carlos and I were born and raised in Central America. My grandfather, who has since passed away, was the person who sponsored us to come to the United States legally. The process took nearly 10 years from the time that my parents had a dream to come to America to finally landed in Wichita, Kansas on April 2nd, 1993. I was 8 years old and did not speak English. I grew up in Southwest Wichita and was bused to Lawrence Elementary School because they had a great English as a second language program. I remember my very first day of school. I went home crying, begging my mother to take us back home. But she reminded us, this is our new home, that I had to grow up, and I grew up fast, because I knew that I would have to take a leadership role within my own family. I became the main translator for my family by learning the language through Wichita Public Schools, but also by watching television, which inspired my career. I watched the 6 o'clock news on Channel 3, followed by Wheel of Fortune. And I always dreamed of one day becoming like the TV journalists that were sharing the language and the culture of our community. Since day one, I've been listening to the issues of our community. That was 30 years ago. I graduated proudly from Lawrence, Ray Whitman, Truesdale Middle School, and Wichita East High School in the International Baccalaureate program. This year, I celebrate 20 years from graduation from being a Blue Ace. And I remember an opportunity that came to me thanks to a mentor. I say that Wichita may not have the oceans or the mountains, but you know what we have? We have really great people. We have great teachers. We have great mentors. And it was a mentor who showed me an educational opportunity at East that afforded me the opportunity to be a worldly citizen and have a high academic level of achievement because of people that invested in my education.
30 seconds.
I graduated from Wichita State University on a Gore Scholarship in 2007 by graduating with an international business degree and an integrated marketing communication degree, and later started my career in journalism. While being a journalist for the past 12 years, I've been listening to our community and their concerns. I've been listening and I've been hearing that the 4 key issues that they're most concerned about are public safety, growing this economy, restoring trust in City Hall, and building a united community. So on April 2nd, 2023, on the 30th anniversary of coming to America, I announced my candidacy to become the next mayor of our great city, because I want to help make Wichita a better place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. We will now get into our student questions. We'll start with question 1. Mei Lin, please come on down.
Hello, my name is Mei Lin. My first question for you is, why are you running for mayor, and what do you hope to accomplish?
And Ms. Wu, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for that question, Mei Lin. First and foremost, the answer really is about gratitude. I'm really grateful for this community. I'm grateful for the people who invested in my public school education. You see, a free public school education is one that is truly not free. Someone is paying for your education, and those are taxpayers, your own parents, your family members, your community members. Well, I am a proud product of Wichita Public Schools and Wichita State University, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities this community has provided me and my family. My parents still live in this community. My mom is a hairstylist in Northwest Wichita, and my dad is a Chinese kitchen cook at the Dillons in Southwest Wichita. I'm really proud of my parents. They immigrated to this country with a dream to provide a better opportunity for their 2 children. And I'm the product of their hard work, of their sacrifice, and I want to make them proud. And I believe that Wichita deserves better leadership. Leadership that is at its core believing in gratitude. For the past 12 years, as a reporter, I've been listening to this community. The dissatisfaction of partisan bickering, unethical behavior, things that people are tired of. And just a few months ago, I made a decision to leave the career I love to be a better servant of this community. I want to be a public servant for Wichita. And I believe that right now, as a non-political, first-time candidate with a fresh perspective to bring into local government is exactly what we need in Wichita. As a proud Wichitan,
30
just
seconds,
like
Ms.
many
Wu.
of you, I hope to keep you in our community. I hope you know that we care about you. I hope that you will see the opportunities that are available here to continue investing in your education or in your careers. And I hope that you will choose to stay in Wichita because leadership in Wichita believes in you.
Mei Lin.
Hello, Mr. Whipple. My name is May Lynn, and why are you running for mayor, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, yeah, I want to first thank you for the question. And really, it's an interesting question because it's not only what do you want to accomplish, but also what drives you to run for mayor. A lot of folks know, if you know me, you know that I grew up in a household of working family. My mom is a waitress. She still works as a waitress. My dad is a carpenter. He's still a carpenter. And we had a kind of an interesting upbringing where we didn't have the same type of opportunities we do here in Wichita. For example, I actually had a learning disability when I was in middle school and also in third grade. And one of the things that my mom had to do as a waitress during the day and then as a bartender at night is she only had about 2 hours between her jobs, and she would take me to the library into the kids section and try to teach me to read. Well, people might not know I was dyslexic. And, for my mother, who just has a high school diploma, just, trying to make the best opportunities for her kids, I remember this time, her trying to teach me something that really a professional could have been more helpful with. Looking at my experience, and my experience also in high school where we didn't really have that job preparation. My experience where basically the class that you were born in was likely the one that you were going to stay in for your whole life. To me, really sticks out when I'm in this role, where I'm actually in places where I can talk to folks about closing that opportunity gap. And I think as we look forward to the future of Wichita, we have to look at how do we close that gap to make sure that the kids of Wichita have it better than I did as a young person trying to learn how to read. Have it better than really as Lily and I, we graduated undergrad at the same time. We both entered the recession. And the job opportunities back in 2008, 2007 were not the type of job opportunities that we think we would want anyone to have to get into. So both of us, I think, share that dream of making sure that you guys have more opportunities than we did at your age. And also, we want to make sure that Wichita is a place where you seek those opportunities. So I'm running for mayor because we have some incredible momentum right now. Not only have we invested in jobs and created more job growth than at any point over the last decade, over the last
30 seconds, Mr. Whipple.
but also we got to invest back into our community, make sure that we're having the services that allow people to get back on their feet if something happens to them, and also make new investments such as in public transportation to make sure that it's not just a safety net system. So I think that it's important not just for this generation, but also I'm a dad, I got 3 kids. I'm a little selfish when I say that, hey, I don't want them leaving Wichita if they don't want to. I want them to be able to get a piece of that American dream right here in our city, so my wife and I, who's somewhere around here, so that we don't, hi, hon. So we don't have to actually leave and see our kids just on the holidays. We want to make sure they're right here, so we got to create the opportunities for them to stay here, just like we want to create the opportunities for you all to be able to stay here as well.
All right, thank you, candidates. We will now move on to question 2. Raul, will you please come down?
You got this, Raul.
Hi, Ms. Wu. I'm Raul Crespo Fernandez. And what is the #1 problem facing the city of Wichita today, and how will you address this issue?
Well, thank you, Raul. As I mentioned earlier, there are 4 key priorities I have: ensuring public safety, growing our economy, restoring trust in City Hall, and building a united community. The top priority, though, has to be public safety. We need to make sure that every community in Wichita feels safe. Unfortunately, at this current moment in time, the Wichita Police Department is in a crisis. They're facing a shortage of about 100 officers. Another 100 officers are eligible for retirement. In addition, there was a recent survey of over 400 officers, and in that survey, 70% of those officers said that they've looked for another job in the last 12 months. So we have a recruitment and retention issue. We also have a crime issue in our communities, not just outside the walls of your school, but even in schools. So we need to get back to preventing crime. But in order to prevent crime, we also need officers who are there to respond to those emergencies. And we do need officers who are part of our community, who are community policing officers, who can have those interactions with you all to build those better relationships. So the first thing that must happen is we need to rebuild and restore the relationship between the mayor's office, the police department, and the community. because we all have to work together to help with preventing crime and reducing crime in Wichita. When you Google Wichita and crime rates, you don't have something favorable that comes up as the search results. One of those search results shows Neighborhood Scout, which is a database, and it shows Wichita ranked as 1. 100 means safest city. That's a problem. That doesn't help with recruiting or retaining people, nor recruiting or retaining officers. So we need to get back to prioritizing public safety. Despite the last 4 years and increases in funding for the police department, we have seen a rise in crime. I asked you, have you seen a rise in crime? So we need to get back to the basics. We have to get back to trying to solve, to trying to reduce, and trying to prevent crime in our community. And I believe each one of you also has an opportunity to be part of the solution, holding each one of us accountable to be respectful towards one another, and not having to call 911 as the first resort, but rather, can we also try our best to get along, to be respectful, to respect each other's properties, and respect ourselves.
All righty, thank you, Ms. Wu. Raul?
Thank you. My name is Raul Crespo Fernandez. And what is the number one problem facing the city of Wichita today? And how will you address this issue?
So I agree that public safety is the number one issue, but public safety is more than just police officers. So we also have to invest in after-school programs. We have to invest in community organizations that actually help us prevent crime by giving young people opportunities to really follow that path, their dream. We also have to make sure that we are investing in roads. That's part of public safety, and also our firefighters. And I'm proud to say on my watch, we've given our firefighters, we turned it from one of the lowest paid to one of the best paid, best professions you can have in the state of Kansas if you're a firefighter. We also made it so before, we had about 14 people who wanted to be firefighters a year, and now we have applicants of over 400. And that's because of the changes we made. When it comes to policing, that's also very important, but we ask so much of our police officers that I think it's important to say that really police officers are best doing police work. For example, our officers, we ask them to be marriage counselors, we ask them to be mental health experts, we ask them to be hostage negotiators, we ask them to do all of this stuff, and the reality is their job is to solve crime and to help us prevent crime. And that's why on my watch, we were able to not only increase pay for police, not only increase technology, which has us at now a 90+ rate for clearing cases of violent crime. That's almost unheard of, which means you're 9 out of 10, if you commit a violent crime, you will be put behind bars. But also, how do we make sure that we continue to make those investments and grow city safety as a whole? Now, I'm not, as mayor, we are not the police chief. And be wary of anyone who thinks that they're smarter than our police chief. We have one of the best police chiefs in the entire country that we just got here in Wichita, and he has a plan that is working. So we have to make sure that we're not getting someone who's never done policing, never been in any type of public policy classroom on policing, in there trying to tell the police chief how to do his job. Our job as legislators, which is what this is, if you're the mayor, you're the head legislator of the body, is to ask, not tell you what to do, but ask, hey, what do you need? What do you need? And by asking that question, not just with our current police chief, but with past police chiefs,
seconds, Mr. Whipple.
We've been able to provide them with the funding and the resources they need, including social workers that now go out to mental health crises so people can get the type of services that they need and not just have to be, I guess, subjected to policing if their situation is a non-policing situation. Thank you.
All righty,
Ms.
thank
Wu,
you,
Mr.
candidates.
Whipple,
Thank you,
for your
Raul.
time.
We're now moving on to question 3. Christy, please come on down.
Hello, my name's Christy. Ms. Wu, what will you do or continue to do to help Wichita's economy?
Christy, a very good question, because I had an opportunity to go away after I completed my 2 bachelor's degrees at WSU. I had the opportunity to be a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, which afforded me the opportunity to pursue my master's in journalism, but also the chance to be an ambassador for the city of Wichita in my early 20s. I gave presentations abroad in both English and Chinese. And so I told Wichita's story and my own story and how they're interwoven. So when I came back from that study, I had the opportunity to either choose to stay in Wichita or leave Wichita. And I chose to stay in Wichita because I believe that we need to continue retaining talent. We need to continue retaining you all in this room. We also need to attract people to come into our city. Strengthening and growing our economy requires an ambassador, someone that can help keep the talent that we have by reminding them of the job opportunities, the talent pipelines that are available, making sure that local government is working with educational institutions like WSU, WSU Tech, vocational schools, trade schools, but also reminding you all that there are jobs right after graduation that also are valuable, and that equally, all three options, whether it's a four-year university, a technical school, or getting into the workforce right after graduation, are all equally important because you all help Wichita's economy. So I believe that the role of mayor is someone that, yes, works on policy, but what they really work on is trying to make sure that you in this room choose to stay in Wichita or come back to Wichita, while also trying to attract new industry, new investment, and talent into this community. I'm really grateful because I have been endorsed by the Wichita Chamber of Commerce, and one of their initiatives is making sure that people, young people like you, choose Wichita. So I hope that that is one way I'm being helpful towards trying to grow Wichita's economy.
All righty, thank you, Ms. Wu. Christy?
Mr. Whipple, what will you do or continue to do to help Wichita's economy?
So I can tell you what I did and how we're going to continue this progress in my second term. I just want to push back a little bit. This isn't an ambassadorship, this is a policy-making position. And because of the policies that we've been able to make, we've seen just unprecedented growth in our local economy. For example, my first year, what we did is took a deep dive in our economic development policies so that it could actually affect small businesses that are already established here. So it means that we'll give you a targeted tax credit or tax relief if you're going to grow your business. Before, that was only if you were moving a business from one state into Wichita, or if you're doing something brand new. So by incentivizing this growth, we're seeing an explosion of people being able to utilize this policy in different ways. So you gotta focus on the businesses that are currently here, help them expand. For the startups, we also have to invest in organizations that are helping with startups. So one of the things that we've done is we put over $5 million. We're the only only city in the entire state that put over $5 million into small business growth and development so that people can actually help grow their small business. And then also, you gotta attract other businesses that could go have choices into Wichita. So for example, with that, we wanted to complement the type of industries that we currently have here. So we brought in technology as one of the variables that we have. So we brought in Novacos, which has offices in California, has offices in London, and now their headquarters here in Wichita. They're a cybersecurity, online cybersecurity firm that now is housed out of Wichita because of the public policies changes that we made and the way we handled COVID, to be frank. And then, as you guys might know, if you're really plugged in, we are going to be home to Quickstep. It is the country of Australia's largest privately owned drone manufacturer. They could move anywhere in the world, and they decided to move to Wichita after I met with them in London, after I met with them in Paris, and after I met with them about 5 times here in Wichita. They are uprooting the entire company and relocating that eventually to Wichita. With that, you also have to make sure that you have job training. We invested $5 million in grants that actually help people get prepared for the next economy. So again, as you move forward, you got to actually respond with policy. It's not just about talking about Wichita, making people feel good about Wichita. It's about getting into the nuts and bolts. I have the experience to do that. I got the proven track record to keep that momentum going.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Christy. Thank you, candidates. We'll now move on to question 4. Eden, And please address your question to Mr. Whipple first.
Hello, Mr. Whipple. My name is Eden Williams Parker. My question is, how would you attract the younger generations to Wichita, and how can you motivate young adults to stay here?
So the interesting thing about this question is, frankly, before Lily and I decided to run for mayor, the majority of the folks who talked about this were people who are of an older generation. And sadly, I think a lot of the responses we used to get was, oh, let's do more bars or more entertainment venues. And I think that's right to an extent when you got folks who are roughly in their 20s. But really, if you want to make Wichita a place for people to grow and to stay, you got to be looking at quality of life from different stages of life. So there was a time my wife and I, we really were looking towards live music and art and entertainment. And then we had kids. And now we can't go out as much. So now we're looking for educational institutions and things that we could do that's fun for our kids. And then, of course, we want to keep our parks clean and our parks safe so that our parents can actually go walk in a park and feel good about getting exercise. So you got to look at it holistically, but particularly when it comes to young people, one of the things we were losing when I became mayor before I became mayor, was we looked at what is our number one export. And sadly, our number one export, it wasn't wheat, it wasn't airplane parts, it was actually young people. Young people with talent who had opportunities to go somewhere else, they would actually leave Wichita to go somewhere else. So what we did is try to figure out, okay, how do we prepare young people for the type of economy of the future by having those opportunities right here in Wichita? And that, again, is going back to the economic development part where we started building a new economy, that next economy, based on what we do well, but also based on, frankly, what that next generation is interested in. And that's pivoting into technology. And I'll just say that when it comes to innovation, innovation isn't Wichita becoming the next Kansas City or the next Austin, Texas. It's becoming the next Wichita. And we got to make sure that also we involve you all in these decision-making discussions, because one of the bad things that elected officials do is once they're elected, they think that they're smarter than everyone. They think they got all the answers. And the ones that do it well show up in spaces like this and say, hey, well, what can we be doing? So I'm not going to flip this on you, but I think that the better question would be like, what more can we be doing? Because I can tell you what I'm doing, and I can tell you what the folks that I'm in a room with have asked us to do, but the reality is it has to go the other way as well. What more can we be doing to make sure that you see Wichita as that place of opportunity? If you're picking between us and you're picking between Austin, what could we be doing that would entice you to stay here instead of going somewhere else?
All right, Eden.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Wu, how would you attract the younger generations to Wichita, and how can you motivate young adults to stay here?
Well, thank you for that question, and I will say that I'm really proud to be a young professional in this community. I, again, really feel grateful to have my parents here, but that is not the only reason why I chose Wichita. I chose Wichita because there are lots of opportunities here. But sometimes you might not know that those are opportunities. So as young people, whether in Wichita or outside of Wichita, we must be better at communicating those opportunities with you all. When I was at East, a long time ago, 20 years ago, I remember visiting colleges across the region and realizing just how expensive out-of-state tuition is. And again, my parents were working class folks who did not save up for my college education. So that is why I had to work even harder to make sure that I could get scholarships to go to college. I won the Gore Scholarship at WSU in 2003, which again gave me the chance to pursue higher education. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. But it's because I learned about an opportunity called the Distinguished Scholarship Invitational. But that's because someone told me about it. And that's what we need more of. We need to share with you all the opportunities that exist in Wichita. So when I have an opportunity to stand before or sit before an audience, especially with young people, I remind them of those scholarship opportunities. So October 15th is the deadline to compete in the DSI. You must, first of all, submit an application to WSU, have an ACT of 27 or greater, an SAT of 1280 or higher, or rank in the top 10% of your class. That's just one opportunity for young people here in this room. There are other young professional opportunities for those outside of these walls. Let me tell you about nonprofits that are doing really great work. When I was a freshman at East, I started volunteering, and that's how I got to know the community better. I started volunteering at Exploration Place.
30 seconds.
And now, 20 plus years later, Exploration Place is expanding, and it's gonna become a destination with this new master plan. And those are things that help bring and attract young people and young families into our community. So there are multiple approaches to trying to bring young people into Wichita, but also never forgetting that you all are also part of the strategy. We want to keep you. We care about you, and we want you to choose Wichita.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, candidates. We will now move to question 5. Bernice, please come on down. And please address your question to Mr. Whipple first.
My name is Bernice, and my question for you is, what is your strategy to lower the crime rate, and what types of crimes do you think need to be addressed immediately?
So really interesting question, because I think we talk about the crime rate like it's one thing, right? And the reality is there's a spectrum of crimes. And usually we see different variables that actually cause certain crimes. And I don't mean to bore you guys with this, but I'm going to dive into it because I respect you enough to actually get into the policy and not just the political talking points on this. For an example, you got to figure out what are the variables that are causing particular crimes to increase. We see an increase in petty theft when you see an increase in opioid usage. So what we're doing is 2 lanes on this. Not only have we passed new policy and new regulation to try to stop something like catalytic converters from being stolen, but also we want to make sure that we have the type of social services for people who are suffering from addiction so they can get the help they need. When it comes to violent crimes, we're really good at solving violent crimes. Like I said, 90% clear rate on violent crimes, that's unheard of. But one of the things that we're learning is that there are a huge, staggering statistic of guns that are stolen in people's cars that wind up being utilized in violent crimes. So what can we do to try to entice folks to not keep their gun unlocked inside the car, to be more responsible when it comes to storing those type of weapons? So I think when it comes to crime, you got to look at the variables. That's part of it. And the other part of it is something that we haven't really discussed yet, and that's called community policing. So community policing is the most expensive way to police, but it's also the most effective way. And that means that police officers are actually reflective of their community. They're within the community, and they're building relationships outside of just diving in to help someone when they're in need. Which means that if you have a better relationship with our police officers or the organizations that also work alongside our police officers, then you're more likely to give them a heads up if something doesn't look right. For example, if you and I are buddies, I'm a police officer, you're a citizen, and you say, hey, my grandma used to live in that house over there. She no longer lives there, and the house is vacant, but there's activity. You should go check it out sometime. That allows me to go over to that house and make sure as an officer and make sure that if there is illegal activity happening, we can actually stop it before someone gets hurt or before the house catches on fire or something before it escalates. And that's the type of stuff that community
30 seconds.
does because you've got that type of relationship. You're not going to call me because the house is vacant if I'm an officer, but you might mention to me if we got a relationship and I'm stopping by saying, hey, how are you doing? How's everything? And then you're hearing anything, you tell me, well, check out that house over there because I want to make sure my little sister's safe walking on these roads, and I'm not sure if everything's up to par with that house. So thank you for the question.
Bernice?
My name is Bernice, and my question for you is, what is your strategy to lower crime rate, and what types of crimes do you think need to be addressed immediately?
Thank you, Bernice. So, as the mayor mentioned, catalytic converter thefts is on the rise here in our community. My father was one of those victims. He was working inside the Dillons at 31st and Seneca in the middle of the day on a Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, when someone was sawing off his catalytic converter. That person came back twice, though. They didn't complete the project the first time, but no one bothered to say anything. No one. In a parking lot at Dillon's. Second time came around, finally someone said something, and the security person came out. Thankfully, they didn't saw it completely off, just halfway. It still damaged my dad's catalytic converter. He had to fix it, took time off, had to make the repairs himself. So I understand that crime is not just violent crime, but these crimes that affect your mom and your dad, and even yourselves with vehicles that you drive to school. So you asked about strategies to help reduce crime. And I believe it starts with crime prevention. And it starts at levels in the high school and middle school levels. So I believe that the strategy that we need to continue investing in is things like the Wichita Police Department's Juvenile Intervention Unit. And also, right here in USD 259, the Future Ready Advocate Mentors. They're helping to prevent a lot of the crime that could happen by helping young people understand that we must, A, respect ourselves and respect others. And so we need to get back to crime prevention and ways that we understand that we're all part of this community. We're all together in this. We all are struggling in some way. And when we create a problem for someone else, it has a ripple effect. It's not just that individual. It could be their families you're affecting. So it gets back to the core of respecting one another and holding each other accountable for our actions. Also, I'm really glad to have been part of the Citizens Police Academy. And there's also a Youth Citizens Police Academy. And I think those help with letting you all see the opportunities in being part of the solution rather than talking about all the crime that does happen in our communities. So I encourage all of you to be part of the solution. And one way you can do that immediately is today. Make sure that you know your neighbors, because it's so much easier to ask a neighbor for help than to approach a neighbor for a problem that they might be causing because of noise complaints or if they have overgrown grass. First, meet your neighbors, and I encourage your parents to also do the same. And I really think it's going back to being a community, which is one of my 4 pillars. Building a united community is not just a strategy on how to prevent crime, but it's also empowering all of us to be part of the solution and that you can be part and have ownership in that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you, candidates. Thank you, Bernice. We're now move on to question 6. Celine, and please address your question to Mr. Whipple first.
Hello, my name is Celine, and my question for you, Mr. Whipple, is what steps will you take to address the homelessness in Wichita?
Really good question. Thank you for that. Did everyone hear that as a question about homelessness and how we address it? So for too long, we've actually had I think, an outdated paradigm when it comes to homelessness. We were actually managing the problem more than solving the problem. So you usually hear folks talk about how, how many meals are served or how our nonprofits are passing out coats or that type of stuff. And that's good. I'm not knocking that. But we actually should be scoring points more on, are we getting people housed? And how are our housing programs working? Because if we really want to address homelessness where it should be, it's getting people on their feet and stabilized, getting them what they need so they can become their best self moving forward. So some of the things that we've done at the city with that is really tweak some of our federal programs to make sure that it's not just about getting a voucher in hand if you qualify for a voucher that helps offset your rent so it's more affordable, but also making sure that our partners who are recommending folks who are experiencing homelessness to get a voucher, that they help us when it comes to getting that person housed. I remember, man, it was maybe last year or the year before, how frustrating it was. About 144 vouchers were in the hands of folks who were experiencing homelessness. Many of them were actually veterans. And they couldn't get landlords or people who rent out apartments to actually rent to them. So we did our part at the local level because we got the voucher program, you qualify, you get a voucher, but didn't stop there. We got to move forward to make sure that we're actually doing that full circle of customer service to actually get them housed as well. Now there are some people though who need even more help. 70% of the folks who are chronically unhoused, these are the folks living outside. These are the folks living underneath bridges. These people are usually wrestling with some type of trauma. Rather, 70% of them have a diagnosable high-level mental health issue or condition. We're not talking about anxiety and depression. I think in our circles we talk about that quite a bit, but we're talking about stuff that you usually need heavy medications for. And sadly, some of these folks, they're not living in a type of reality we are. These are the people talking to themselves, walking down the road, really animated. And then we got 70%
30 seconds.
who actually are suffering from a substance abuse issue, which means they're self-medicating. 50% suffer from both. So you can't actually address homelessness unless you're willing to invest in a type of social services that people need so they can get the variables that are causing them to be in homelessness. They can get those variables solved. So they get the services they need, get back on their feet, and really get back to their lives. And that's my goal as mayor of my second term.
Celine?
My question for you is, what steps will you take to address homelessness in Wichita?
Thanks, Celine. So the word homeless is one that is so broad. Again, it's a label. When it's more accurate to say things like our unhoused population, we see them underneath bridges or sidewalks, but we also see them in our own classrooms, our peers. Sometimes we have friends who don't have a permanent address. So we have multiple levels of homelessness that folks are experiencing, and they will require multiple ways to try to solve homelessness in our community. Yes, we have veterans who are experiencing homelessness. We have families experiencing them from when they have a volatile situation at home or an unforeseen circumstance, whether it's health-related or just an unfortunate event in their lives. So it's going to require multiple ways that we try to attack homelessness. But I believe it's a community-wide issue, which means it's going to require our whole community to, again, be part of this community-wide problem. So I'm really excited because at the beginning of this year, there's been a group called the Homeless Task Force that really brings together more collaboration. It brings together government, it brings together nonprofits, and it brings together the business community. And they're about to have a meeting with just the business community in general, because a lot of the bright solutions that this group has come up with are really great, but they're going to require resources, which means money. So we need to engage our business community and continue to ask them to be part of the solution. But I also believe that we all, again, can play a role in
30
this.
seconds.
And so I ask all of you to remind ourselves that we are all individuals. We might all be carrying some sort of struggle ourselves, and to be kind and compassionate to those who are experiencing homelessness, but also try to connect them to the resources that are available in our community. Because Wichita is a very giving community. And I'm so grateful because those individuals that help with funding nonprofits and the groups that help our homeless populations are the ones that need to be at the table too. So again, I'm really grateful to have been part of these meetings as just a regular community member, but I also challenge the mayor to be at the table too. Thank you.
I'm at the table. Been at the table 4 years now, in case anyone's wondering.
Alrighty, thank you, candidates. We will now move on to Malachi. Question 7, and Malachi, please address Ms. Wu first.
Good afternoon, I'm Malachi Lucero. Mr. Whipple has said his administration was able to increase transparency at City Hall. What do you feel still needs to be done?
Malachi, so one of my 3 pillars is restoring trust in City Hall. And it is not just current administration, but past administrations too. We need to hold our public officials accountable. For the past 12 years, I've been a local reporter. I've been finding facts, revealing truth, and holding public officials accountable. Those are the same skills that are needed in City Hall. Asking questions, asking the tough ones. Also making sure that we communicate better. You see, when we want increased transparency, that really means increased communication too. I want you all to know how local government works. I want you all to know that City Hall is welcome and welcomes you every single Tuesday or any day of the week when business hours are available. When we have City Council meetings, though, they're on Tuesdays at 9 a.m., and sometimes you don't get to see those meetings because you're in school. So I want more transparency, meaning more communication with all of our community to understand how local government works. Because our City Council, our form of government, is a City Council manager type of government, which means there are 7 people who are part of that City Council with equal voting power. There's no veto power by the mayor, which means you have to be a collaborator and a consensus builder. And so you need someone that can work together with other council members and make sure that we have a government that is transparent, that is truthful, and is working for everyday citizens. Thank you.
Malachi?
All right. Ms. Wu has stated that there is a lack of trust in local government. Do you agree with this? How do you plan to promote trust between citizens and City Hall?
So that's a good question. I think it's a misunderstanding of the purpose of government. There are no Western democratic governments you can point to that have full trust of their citizens. In fact, our Constitution states that we are working towards a more perfect union. So the idea that we would try to achieve or be able to achieve a perfect union, which means all of us are in full trust, everyone is just so happy, is frankly more of a fantasy than it is ideology, in my opinion. Now, as being an elected official, what I want is to be held accountable by our citizens. I want pushback when something's not working. And all I want, the gold standard of being elected isn't full-on trust. It is the benefit of the doubt, which means that if you hear, let's say you get a mailing from a DC dark money group that says something silly, all right, which you will get lots of those. If you hear something silly, I don't want you to trust me to the extent where, like, I'm not even going to question this. I want you to trust me to the extent where, hey, I'm going to get the mayor's side of the story before I move on. I want to know what is City Hall, what really happened here. And that is really how good government works, where it's not so much that you just have blind trust, but you are actually willing to engage with elected officials because you have a previous relationship with them, because you show up to things like this. Thank you guys for being here, by the way, which allows you to have that dialogue. Hey, I heard this nasty thing. What do you have to say about it? So I think trust also is that we do the things we say we're going to do. Sadly, in Wichita, half the time since I've been here, people overpromise and they underdeliver. I mean, look what happened with the baseball stadium, for example. Raise your hand if you've been to the baseball stadium. It's cool, right? It's not bad. However, what they talked about, they were going to promise a Ferris wheel, like I think they were going to have rocket ship rides, maybe not. But they really promised this huge thing, and then they gave you this. And then when I became mayor, one of my problems was, hey, we are overpromising, we're underdelivering, and that causes issues with trust. So what we have to do is be honest with people what they're going to get.
30 seconds.
Even if it costs us a vote or two. Even if, so-and-so wanted a Ferris wheel with a rocket that's taking us to the moon, okay, we might not get that vote. We might not get consensus on that. But I'd rather have trust with you all, knowing that we're going to spend your taxpayer money responsibly. And if we're not, you're going to call me and say, hey, we need it done better. I'd rather have that type of relationship than just blind trust.
Alrighty, thank you, Malachi. Thank you, candidates. We are now moving on to question 8. Jason, please come on down. Please address your question first to Ms. Wu.
Hi, my name is Jason. Ms. Wu, what skills do you believe students should focus on to achieve success in the 21st century, and how can public education help achieve these skills?
Thank you for that question, Jason. I had the opportunity yesterday to attend Flagship Kansas's Tech Week, Tech Day and Summit. And one of the things that I walked away with was one of the skills that they talked about was making sure that young people like yourselves who will be graduating soon have problem-solving skills, troubleshooting skills, that you can pick yourself back up and try again with a problem. You see, my very first job was a waitress at a Chinese buffet. And I remember that I had to troubleshoot. I learned some skills of how to navigate tough situations. I had people walk out on me in terms of not paying their bill. I remember chasing after people because I knew that it would have to come out of my own pocket in order to pay for that person's meal. But then I learned that that's probably not a safe thing to do. So then I became more attentive and like a hawk in terms of trying to watch all my customers. But that also wasn't helpful because when you're a waitress, you're trying to do a lot of things. You're trying to problem solve everywhere. But they taught me skills. That experience of being a waitress in my teenage years taught me many of those skills. And those are the same skills that employers are asking you all to have. Problem-solving, troubleshooting skills.
30 seconds.
But I believe, as someone who comes from a communications background, that communication skills are also just as critical. You see, communication skills are not just on social media. It's actually having conversations one-on-one with each and every one of you. It's difficult, it's a lot more work, but that's how real relationships and communication works. When you actually see someone face to face and see who that person really is, not just in a social media text or a mailer that you get or a social media meme that you see. So I encourage all of you to continue working on your communication skills and your problem troubleshooting skills. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wu. Jason?
Mr. Whipple, what skills do you believe students should focus on to achieve success in the 21st century, and how can public education help achieve these skills?
I just want to say I actually like my social media. So if you're on social media, feel free to reach out to me when it comes to the last question about communication. You always get me. You're not getting someone else. No one who works on my campaign runs that. You're getting me, snark and all. So I appreciate that type of communication as well. When it comes to the skills, though, for the next generation, it's really following that next economy. You guys are creating that next economy, which means that you have to really get involved in technology. Technology is the one variable since even the 70s that's been driving our economy, and that is going to get into and take advantage of your skill sets. Being able, raise your hand if you play Minecraft. All right, raise your hand if you play Xbox. Raise your hand if you can build an app. Okay, raise your hand if you can understand social media to an extent where you feel comfortable doing marketing. Okay, so the stuff you're doing now, and you guys are in high school, and you already have some of that skill set because it's kind of fun to do, right? But also that is going to carry you into that next generation or that next economy. Now, when it comes to your second part of your question, what can we learn in high school? What is that merger? It's also being able to utilize your day, not just learning, I think, what we consider traditional curriculum, but also job training type curriculum. If you are someone who raised your hand because you play Minecraft, there's a lot of transferable interest into different types of design work. If you're someone who raised your hand if you like working with your hands. All right, yeah, I've got a few. There's a lot of opportunity if you like working with your hands to position yourself for a career credential that's going to have you building rockets, have you building satellites, have you building drones. Like, there's a lot of opportunity to take something that you are passionate about, find your niche at the high school that's going to help further that, and then pivot into that after high school. You'll get out with a lot more opportunity than I did at your age.
All right, thank you, candidates. Thank you, Jason. Candidates, due to time constraints, we are going to allow 1 minute for these last two remaining questions. Next questions will be number 9, Jakaya. Please come on down.
Hi, I'm Jakaya Jones, and I'm going to read this question. Although the race for mayor is nonpartisan election, you are supported by different parties. Mrs. Wu, how will your libertarian beliefs affect your leadership?
Jakaya, let me start off by saying the most asked question of me in this nonpartisan race has been, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? And my answer is this: I'm a proud Wichitan. I'm part of Wichita's party. Because you see, it's a nonpartisan race. And what I've been hearing is a lot of people who are tired of the two major political parties that are creating narratives of division. A libertarian, which I am a registered libertarian, believes in the word liberty, freedom. It's in our Constitution, and it's the reason why my parents came to this country. You see, my parents left communist China to come to this country where we have the opportunity to have better chance at starting
30 seconds.
here and ending wherever you want to be. It's based off of your hard work and your effort. And as a libertarian, I am not going to be pushing that party. What I will be pushing, though, are 4 priorities. And those are the promises I will keep. Because I will prioritize public safety. I will prioritize our economy. I'll prioritize trust and building a community. But it requires all of us to be part of this community, which is why, if you are 18, I encourage you to get educated about the individuals who are running, what the role of mayor is, and then vote on November 7th. So again, partisanship is what I'm hearing the community is tired of.
All righty, thank you, Ms. Wu. Jakaya.
Mr. Whipple, how will your democratic beliefs affect your leadership?
So I just want to talk a little bit about partisanship. I'm never going to beat people up for getting involved in our political process by picking one of the major parties. That's actually how people usually get involved, is they find values that they have in common with either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And that's what brings them in, and we want to bring more people in. So I'm never going to shame anyone for that, but I'm going to talk briefly about my experience in the legislature. That is a partisan environment, and your partisanship, basically the party you're with, you wear it like a jersey. You're out there blocking points from the other side and trying to score points on your side. Now, when we go to the city level, we're not organized based on partisanship. So raise your hand if you've ever been to Topeka. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been to DC. All right, a few hands. So those governments are actually organized by partisanship. The party in power, the most members, get to pick who's going to be on what committees, what chairs, what committees, and also what bills get heard and voted on. At the city level, our partisanship is a reflection of our values. We don't wear it as a jersey, we wear it on our sleeve. Because it's plug and play. The mayor gets plugged in, and there's no like, well, how many of us are with this party or that party? We don't restructure our government. So when anybody talks about partisanship at the local level, they're talking about values. Now, getting back to my democratic values, I believe, for example, one of the differences is I believe that we help people who actually need help. All right, that's why one of the things I was able to do in this budget was make sure that we had the largest targeted tax cut for working class and families and for senior citizens who are on a fixed income, really for people who need it, moms, single moms. While my Republican friends, they wanted across the board mill levy cut that would have been for most people, most all of us, unless you're a huge property owner in our city, would have been the equivalent of like a number 2 with a milkshake as far as giving money back. But if you own tons of property, you're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars put into your pockets because of that. So I think that when it comes to partisanship, if we break it back down to values, Democrats and me, I want an economy built from the bottom up and from the middle out. And that's why I invest in education. That's why I invest in tax credits and tax cuts for people who actually need it, for low-income people. That's why we cut water bills for people with low income who actually need it. And my Republican friends, they're not bad people. They just think opportunity, instead of investing in really education and people who need it, they think you got to invest in the people who create jobs. And they think we got to give businesses and rich people more tax cuts so it trickles down. It's just a fundamental difference, I think, in policy. And I'm pretty happy to say that, my values, we invest in people. We don't just invest in corporations.
All right. Thank you, candidates. Due to time constraints, we will be moving on from question 10 and be moving into closing statements. With Mr. Whipple opening, we will start with Ms. Wu, and Mr. Whipple will have the final word. Ms. Wu, closing statements, please.
Sure. I'm just really proud to come from Wichita, Kansas. For the last 30 years, this has been my home. For the past 20 plus years, I've been a community volunteer and leader. I served on boards like the Wichita Asian Association, Orpheum Theater, Botanica Chinese Garden of Friendship, the Wichita State University Alumni Association, and Diversity Kansas. I have been in your seats. I had dreams just like you do right now. My dream as an 8-year-old was to become a reporter and become one of the journalists in our community that help tell Wichita stories, sometimes positive stories, sometimes sad and disappointing stories. And they all have been part of my lived experiences through them. So I carry their experiences as I move forward with my life. I've heard them, I understand them. I'm part of this community. So for the past 12 years, I had the chance to be a professional listener. I have been listening. I have been also helping share Wichita's story.
30 seconds.
And what I've been hearing is people are tired of partisan bickering. They're tired of unethical behavior, and they're tired of rising crime. So again, my top priority is to ensure public safety, because I believe that when you have a safe and healthy community, it will be thriving, and it can be that place that you choose to be, to work, to live,
10 seconds.
and to raise a family. So I encourage you all to get out to vote on November 7th. Register to vote if you're 18. I brought those applications and will have them in the back for you, because I believe that you all are part of our community and part of the solution, and I want to empower you to have your voice heard. So again, my name is Lily Wu, and I hope to earn your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
All right. Students, we may catch that bell. Give Mr. Whipple the respect to allow him to finish his closing statements. Ignore the bell. Mr. Whipple, closing statements, please.
Y'all, I'm not going to keep you here long. I know you got class to do. I just want to thank you for coming out. I want to be the next mayor for 4 years, so I want to create a Wichita that includes all of us. As mayor, I want to make more jobs for folks who are looking into that next economy. I was happy to steer in the non-discrimination ordinance to make sure that we value everyone in Wichita and look towards common sense police reform to make sure that police are actually helping us and not hurting us when we call them out, so that they have access to mental health experts, so we don't have to live in a city where a kid dies while in custody because untrained people over the county didn't know what they were doing. So as we move forward, I'm going to humbly ask for your vote, and I'm going to ask for your support, because this isn't about me, this isn't about Lily, this is about this moment. And if we take advantage of this moment, the decisions we make and the decisions we make over the next 4 years are going to determine the trajectory of our city for the next 30 years. And when y'all are ready to lead, when y'all are running for office, I want you to be able to look back on this moment and say that we delivered. And if you're staying here, making sure that you're raising your kids in this incredible city, I want you to be proud of this city, and that's why I'm fighting for a city for all of us as we move forward. Thank you all for being here.
Alrighty, that concludes the Wichita Southeast Town Hall meeting. A special thanks to Mr. Nathan Christner, Jeff Davis, and Tanya Howard for their efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Whipple and Lily Wu, thank you.
You want to do a selfie?